Saranya.N from 3rd Beacon Children. I'm going to review the book named A Study in Scarlet. A Study in Scarlet is an 1887 detective novel written by Arthur Conan Doyle. The story marks the first appearance of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, who would become the most famous detective duo in literature. The book title derived from a speech given by Holmes, a consulting detective, to his friends and a chronicler Watson, on the nature of his work, in which he describes the story murder investigation as a study in scarlet. This is the scarlet thread of a murder running through the colorless skin of life, and our duty is to unravel it and isolate it and expose every inch of it. The story and its main characters attract little public interest. When it first appeared, only level complete copies of the magazine in which the story first appeared, Beaton's Christmas Annual for 1887, are known to exist now, and they have considerable value. Although Conan Doyle wrote 56 short stories featuring Holmes, A Study in Scarlet is one of only 4 full-length novels in the original canon. The novel, followed by The Sign of the Four, published in 1890, A Study in Scarlet was the first work of detective fiction to incorporate the magnifying glass as an investigative tool. About the author, Sir Author Ignatius Conan Doyle, born on 22nd May 1859 and died on 7th July 1930. He was a British writer and physician. He created the character Sherlock Holmes in 1887 for A Study in Scarlet, the first of 4 novels and 56 short stories about Holmes and Dr. Watson. Sherlock Holmes stories are a milestone in the field of crime fiction. Doyle was a prolific writer other than home stories. His works include fantasy and science fiction stories about professor challenges and humorous stories about the Napoleonic soldier Brigadier General, as well as plays, romances, poetry, non-fiction and historical novel. One of the Doyle's early short stories, J. Habakkuk Jepson's Statement in 1884, helped to popularize the mystery of the Mary Classett. About the story, Author Conan Doyle starts the story with a crime scene. There is an abandoned house in Bigstone Road. Inspector Gregson and Letts stayed on the crime spot. They entered the house and saw a dead body. They identified the victim as Enoch Trevor. Gregson saw a man outside, covered his face with a cloth. He rushed to him, asked a question. The man refused and ran. Gregson whistled, giving signal to Lestrade into the story. In 1881, Dr. John Watson has returned to London after serving in the Second Anglo-Afghan War. He is looking for a place to live. An old friend tells him that Sherlock Holmes is looking for someone to split the rent at the flat at 221B Baker Street. When Watson came home, he heard a gunshot. He rushed to Sherlock Holmes' room. Holmes and Watson meet, and after accessing each other and the rooms, they move in. Holmes revealed that he is a consulting detective and that his frequent guest are clients. After a demonstration of Holmes' detective skills, Watson's disbelief turned into an astonishment. A man came and had a letter with him, and standing in front of Holmes' flat, Watson saw him through the window. Watson came down and fetched a letter from him. Watson gave the letter to Holmes. It is a telegram request, a consultation in a murder case. Watson accompanies Holmes to the crime scene, an abandoned house on Bigstone Road. Inspector Gregson and Lestrade are already on the scene. Holmes found a footprints on the ground. Later, he entered the crime spot, greeted by Inspector Gregson and Lestrade. The victim is identified as the Enoch Trevor, and a document found on his person reveals that he has a secretary named Joseph Stangerson. Moving upon Gerber's body, they discovers a woman's gold wedding ring, and on one wall written in red is Rack. Rack means revenge in German. Holmes gets suspicious about the footprint in the garden. He bent down and removed the cloth which covered Gerber's body. There is no mud stain in his shoes. He deduces that the victim died from a poison and supplies a description of the murderer, which Holmes dismisses a ploy to fool the police. Holmes calls the reporters and asks them to place a notice in several newspapers about the ring and a duplicate ring like the original one of it, and gave it to the Watson says, hoping to find the murderer, who has apparently already tried to retain the ring out of hiding. A day later, Gregson called Holmes and said, Detective, I arrested a suspect, someone in the case of Enoch Gerber murder. Hurry up and come to the prison. Sherlock Holmes, okay, we will be there in the time. Sherlock Holmes and Watson walked through the Baker Street. Just at the moment, a very young street urchin named Wiggins arrived. He is the leader of the Baker Street Irregulars, a group of street children Holmes employs to help him occasionally. Wiggins stated that he summoned the cab Holmes wanted. Both the men are now in a police station standing in front of the prison inside the suspect. Watson telling them that he has arrested a suspect. He had gone to Madame Charpentier boarding house when Gerber and Stangerson had stayed before the murder. He learned from her that Gerber, a drunk, had attempted to kiss Mrs. Charpentier's daughter Alice, which caused their immediate eviction. Gerber, however, came back later that night and attempted to grab Alice, promoting her older brother to attack him. He attempted to chase Gerber with the cudgel but claimed to have lost sight of him. Gregson has him in custody on the circumstantial evidence. Lestat then arrives and reveals that Stangerson has been murdered. His body was found near his hotel window, stabbed through the heart. Above it was written in red. The only things Stangerson had with him were a novel, a pipe, telegram saying JH is in Europe, and a small box containing 2 pills. Holmes tests the pills as an old and silky Scottish terrier in the residence at Baker Street. The first pill produces no evidence effect, but the second pill, the terrier. Holmes deduces that one was harmless and the other is poison. At 8 p.m., an old woman answered the advertisement claiming that the ring belonged to her daughter. Holmes gives her the duplicate and follows her, but she evades him. This leads Holmes to believe that she was an accomplice or perhaps the actual murderer in this case. Baker Street Irregulars boys came. Holmes sent him down to fetch the cabby, claiming to need help with his luggage. When the cabby came upstairs and bent for the trunk, Holmes handcuffed and restrained him. He then announces the captive cabby as Jefferson Hope, the murderer of Gerber and Stangerson. Hope threw himself from the glass window. Holmes and Watson sent him to the hospital. Later, at the end of treatment, Holmes asking about the revenge. The story flashes back to the Salt Lake Valley in Utah in 1847, where John Ferrer and a little girl named Lucy, the only survivor of a small party of pioneers, are rescued from the death by a large party of Latter-day Saints led by Brigham Young, but only on the condition that they adopt and live under the Mormon faith. Years later, and now grown Lucy. One day, Lucy and John Ferrer drove to their houses. Lucy felt someone following them. After a few more minutes, they met with an accident, saved Lucy and John Ferrier and fetch them to their home. Lucy befriends with him and falls in love with him. However, Young forbade her from marrying outside the faith and demand that she either marry Joseph Stangerson or Enoch Trevor, both sons of members of the Church Council of Fort Ferrier, who has adopted Lucy and sworn to never marry his daughter to a Mormon. Immediately sent a word to Hope. Lucy is given 1 month to choose between her suitors. Hope finally arrives on the eve of the last day, and they all escape under a cover of darkness. The Mormon interrupt the escapes while Hope is away hunting. As their food had run out, Ferrier is killed while Lucy is forcibly married to Durber and dies a month later from a broken heart. Hope breaks into Durber's house the night before Lucy's funeral to kiss her body and remove her wedding ring. He sears a vigilance on Durber and Stangerson, but he begins to suffer from an erotic aneurysm, causing him to leave the mountain to earn money and recuperate when he returns several years later. We learn that Durber and Stangerson have fled Salt Lake City after a schism between the Mormons. Hope pursues them, eventually tracking them to Cleveland, then to Europe. In London, Hope becomes a cabbie and eventually finds Durber and Stangerson after the altercation with Madame Charpentier's son. Durber gets into Hope's cab and spends several hours drinking. Eventually, Hope takes him to the house on Bigstone Road, where Hope forces Durber to recognize him and to choose between two pills, one of which is harmless and the other is poison. Durber takes the poison pill and as he dies, Hope shows him Lucy's wedding ring. The excitement coupled with his aneurysm causes his nose to bleed. He uses the blood to write "rack" on the wall above Durber to confound the investigators. Stangerson, on learning of Durber's murder, refused to leave his hotel room. Hope climbs in through the window and gives Stangerson the same choice to pill, but he is attacked and nearly strangled by Stangerson and forced to stab him in the heart. End of the flashback. Holmes dies from his aneurysm the night before he is to appear in court. Holmes reveals to Watson how he had deduced the identity of the murderer, then shows the Watson the newspaper Lestat and Gregson are given full credit outright. Watson states that Holmes should record the adventure and publish it. Upon Holmes' refusal, Watson decided to do it himself. End of the story. Thank you for listening the book review.